the state of grace is, in my eyes, your ideal state of being. So the whole podcast is people that had challenges and then how did they reach their state of grace? Okay. And we want to know also what is your state of grace? You became a sex symbol. So that's a lot of pressure. Like starting young, being a sex symbol. So, how did that impact your life?
Well, in my era, the 80s, you weren't
Mhm.
allowed to age. Once I hit 35, I remember going to an audition and the casting director said, "God, you look pretty good for an old lady." And I went, "I'm 35." We were considered old past 30 in that era. And then the 90s came along and Friends was on the air and women were allowed to get a little older and they didn't have to look perfect. But being a sex symbol, it's a ridiculous word. It's the way the networks were objectifying women in those days, because Farrah Fawcett, ever since Charlie's Angels and before, of course, Cheryl Tiegs had a poster. Then Charlie's Angels, all the angels had a poster. They made me do a poster. ABC Network put me on these life-size posters in a bikini, crawling around on all fours or in a sequin bathing suit. And they put it out as their official promos. And then Ted Knight blew a gasket. It was like I was on the cover of all the magazines, and the producers had to run around hiding the magazines from Ted because he didn't like, he deserved the attention. He was a 6-time Emmy award-winning actor from Mary Tyler Moore, and I was in awe of him. And I didn't want to steal his thunder, but they were trying to promote me to get the ratings because they think sex sells, and they were trying to put me in the skimpiest outfits you could imagine. And being a young kid in Hollywood, it was just a young kid. Okay. So I already graduated college and I had a business degree and I was writing a book on Stalin, the dictator, and I was a writer. And
wow,
I'd been in every play in high school, but I didn't think you could make a living in the arts. It didn't. My father was a violinist, and they said, you can't make a living being an actress. It's insane. And so I just, drove my U-Haul out from college and just knocked on doors, and the third audition I got was the one that worked. So there was kind of a lot of serendipity in that. And I'll go back to that later. It's like breadcrumbs on the path. When you're not too knowledgeable about the pitfalls and you don't put blocks in your way of doubt, and you just sort of are walking into the town with wide-eyed wonder, a lot of wonderful things can happen. But if you set yourself up for failure by fear and worry, you sort of stand on your own garden hose. You stop the flow of success. And I didn't have that yet. I didn't have nothing bad had happened yet. So all these good luck things were happening to me.
Wow.
I went through some times after the series ended where I did stop myself I sabotaged myself, let's put it that way. But we'll go back.
We'll go back. Absolutely. So, how did you deal with all this being thrown at you? Because it feels like it was overwhelming.
I don't know. I remember just being like a kid in a candy store. I came to, I have to say, there must have been some spiritual aspect to this early on. And I'm not terribly religious, but boy, do I believe in the power of this spiritual divine love, the love in the universe that really is everything. And if we stop, like you said, the gratitude every morning, if I just wake up with this feeling of, wow, what a cool life, what a cool day it is, what a beautiful day, and go from there, it can only get better. If I wake up with misery and thinking of what I don't have, I really stop myself from happiness and joy. But back in those days, I graduated college. I had the secret wish to be an actress. I didn't want anyone to know about it. So I worked at Caribou Ranch. I went the sideways route. The only place in Colorado, in Boulder, Colorado, that had anything to do with showbiz was the music industry, this recording studio up in the mountains. And we were way up above sea level, like a mile-high city, Denver. And I skied my way through college. I took Spanish, philosophy, anthropology. I worked my way as a waitress to pay for college. My parents didn't have any money. But we lived in Scarsdale, which is the wealthiest community in the United States. And that's because my parents rented a house there and my dad got a job. I think it's through prayer, because my mother, he had lost everything and he was bankrupt, and His best friend called him one day and said, "Hey, come to New York and work for me." And the only place they wanted to live was in the good school district, Scarsdale. And we got a job there. I didn't fit in very well, but I wanted to be Jewish in the worst way. So my whole life I wanted to be Jewish. So it's like, so I grew up with these wonderful people that I finally went back to my high school reunion, and there are all these phenomenal people that I now know in my life. But to make a long story short, I was in every play in high school. I was a nerd. I was in the drama club. My best friend was one gay guy named Monroe.
Yes.
And then I come out to Hollywood. I drove out with a U-Haul, and well, first of all, I worked at Caribou Ranch, where I got to pick up Carole King and Joni Mitchell and Billy Joel from the airport. And I crashed Billy Joel's band into a snowbank, and I got fired. And the boss, Jimmy Guercio, the founder of Caribou Ranch, which is a recording studio where the Beach Boys in Chicago recorded, he fired me. And Billy Joel said, "If you fire her, I'm not going to record my album here." And he got my job back. So I had this kind of,
that is so sweet.
I was so starstruck. I wanted to be in Hollywood, but I didn't think you could be an actress. So, you know, I tried to work my way there through the back door by becoming a music executive or something. And it kind of worked in a weird way. It got me to Hollywood.
Do you feel like your desire and your positive attitude kind of like got you everything that you wanted in the beginning, for sure?
Yes, I think my intentions were so clear. Even though I was secretly not telling anyone out loud, I was embarrassed. My mother said, and being an actress is so shallow. It's like, it was narcissistic. It was like, why? Just because you think you're pretty? But no, I was really, in high school, I played in Othello. Monroe and I played torchbearers. We both had acne, and I had these big sideburns I had to plaster on my face and play a torchbearer, standing behind the beautiful Desdemona. You know, I did not blossom in high school. I was too shy. I was like, my hair was my security blanket. And we just wanted to be in every play, because being in the theater was like make-believe. It was like an alternate universe. So I could play any character. And I got the lead in Enemy of the People. I got to play Petra. Monroe played Aslickson. It was really cool to be in theater. And then I thought, maybe I'll go to Hollywood after I graduate. And when I came out here, I got a series really quickly. And I got the series after I'd already done the pilot for Too Close for Comfort. And I got the series and the movie all at once. So it was kind of like I walked into a lot of good luck.
Well, I think that you said your intention, and then you just went for it. And that has a lot to do with it, I think.
I forgot to tell you this, Grace. You're so right. I forgot to tell you, I think my father had a strange heart attack. I was in Holland visiting my family after I graduated. I was called back to Holland after working at Epic Records in LA. It was like from Colorado to LA and then called back to Holland where they were living. And he was a Greek. He was working in Rotterdam. His office had transferred him to Holland, and my brother and sister were going to the American School of The Hague. Dad had he'd taken a blood thinner, and it shot this pulmonary embolism to his heart. And we were all waiting by his bedside. And I remember being so afraid he would die. And I would go home to our house in The Hague. It was an apartment. Yeah. And I'd watch American TV shows like Barnaby Jones. And at the end of every TV show would be a list of producers. There were lots of American TV shows with English subtitles. I wrote down the names of every producer on every TV show, and I wrote them handwritten letters. I'm coming back to California. Are there any jobs that you know for me? I even wrote a letter to Jack Nicholson.
Oh, wow.
I'm convinced that the intentional act of writing those letters and the dedicated activity resulted in success later. Those letters didn't get me anything, but I was so intentional about it.
Yes. And I think when your intention is aligned with your mind and your heart, that things just happen.
Absolutely right.
Right?
Yeah, there's a magic in the universe that comes from fearless intention. If you don't stop yourself with fear and doubt, it's the worry, fear, and doubt. It's like all our doubts arrest God's work through us, or God to me is love, and it's inside of us. It's the kingdom is within you. We're all just particles of love. Pour love on every problem, and go forward, go in the direction of your dreams, confidently in the direction of your dreams. Stop being self-conscious. I learned a lot of these terrible, I got more self-conscious later when I realized, oh, wow, you could lose all this, the fear of losing what you have or not getting what you want. It's all ego and it's all that self-centered fear.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because even if you lose it, so what? We're
Yeah.
here temporarily, we're here for a few years and then we go. So it's really, we give importance, I think, to things that are really in the big picture. They're not really that important. Right? It's the ego, like
You
you're saying.
taught me that. I had you on my show, my God Shots show, which is
Yes.
stories of synchronicity and uncanny coincidence, which I've had so many of. They're spine tingling. But Grace, you came on and said, I'm going to embrace cancer as an adventure and
Yes.
resisting and fighting it and dreading it. I'm going to look at the joy in it. I have never heard that before. You have blew my mind. I love you so much for teaching people a new way to look at anything going on in our lives, bad or good.
Yeah, absolutely. And the bad or good is really a judgment. We've been programmed to say this is good, this is bad, but what's good for you might not be good for me and vice versa. So what really is good and bad? It is subjective. So I can make something bad, quote, I'm doing quotes, air quotes, something bad, bad. I can make it good.
At the end of reading with Ted and Deborah says to me, hey, what's your name again? I said, it's Lydia Cornell. It's this weird Russian name, Kornilov. I was embarrassed of my long, weird name. And she said, Kornilov. She says, I work for a Gregory Kornilov, but he was in New York City. I worked for him when he was in New York, and then he was transferred to Holland for Interpol, this shipping company. And I went, that's my dad. Out of 10
Wow.
in New York City, she worked for my father. That is too weird. There's no such thing as a random coincidence. No. So I eventually later called this a God job. Chills were going down my spine. I went, she was my dad's secretary, sending him telexes in Holland.
Seriously, that's insane.
And then the producer says to me, we don't ever tell an actress in advance before we call your agent, but we're going to tell you right now, you got the part. You and Deborah are going to be sisters. Now we are.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's amazing. That is a God shot. So that was your first one, right?
I love you, Deborah.
So then can we talk about your substance abuse issue?
Well, after every show, we would go out with the whole cast would go out and we'd drink, at Giuseppe's restaurant on Beverly, and Ted Knight would go with us. My fiance Truett Bell, and I started drinking. They thought I was doing cocaine because I was taking water pills to look thinner on camera. Women,
oh my God,
no one knows what women go through in this industry. And by the way,
insane.
The first agent I ever met in Hollywood, I never got raped. I never had to do the casting couch. But the first agent I ever met greeted me by pulling his pants off. I've heard it happen to lots of women, but I ran out of the room going, oh, excuse me, I've got to get something out of my car. It was like, I didn't want him to be embarrassed, how that is in the 80s.
That's insane.
I will never say his name. But anyway, it's just, we thought that was part of the course. Because in those days, in the 80s,
it was different.
Like objects. And they wanted you to look sexy, and you had to always be thin, and you had to have big, everything was all about how you look.
Yes. So did you have a hard time accepting that fact that that's the way it was, or did you just go along with it and say, forget it, I don't care, I'll just go along with it?
I went along with it. It was weird. It was like I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. None of us did. Right. The culture we were in, I don't blame the men so much.
No,
a lot of people blame the men.
I agree.
But you can't blame the men. It was the advertising culture we were in. They were putting out posters of Farah and women looking sexy, and the sex, even MTV and music videos got really over-sexualized. And you can't really blame guys who thought that was just a free-for-all. We all thought that's the way the world worked. It was really bizarre, though. I mean, you weren't allowed to gain a pound, or you weren't allowed to age, so that got weird. A lot of women were thrown away at a certain age.
So, that's crazy. That's
so nowadays.
It's
Yeah.
unfathomable. Yeah, it's just like people, if you explain this to a young person, they'd be like, why did you accept it? But, we all kind of accepted it and worked with it, most of us,
You
because
went through that too. You went through that too, didn't you?
I
Yeah.
went through that too. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
weird. People don't really get what we went through. We weren't allowed to have big butts until J-Lo appeared with a bigger booty one day.
thank God.
You were
But
allowed to
I'm
have a butt.
now. It's like,
I've written a whole movie about this, but like Twiggy, suddenly women were comfortable in their beautiful voluptuousness, and then how do we make them insecure? Twiggy, we got to get models that look like stick figures, and then they
absolutely.
won't be insecure.
And now it's the opposite. So skinny people are insecure. It's like whatever. They get
Oh my
BBLs
God.
and they get fake boobs because they feel they have to. And it's so sad. It's like everybody, after what I've been through, that, I had a mastectomy and they put a new boob in. It's like, you know what?
Vasectomy?
A mastectomy. Yeah, I had my boob
Oh,
taken
I
out.
thought you said vasectomy. Oh my
Oh,
God.
no. Oh, one time actually, I went to the doctor and I didn't have anything wrong with me, so I put an erectile dysfunction on the list. So not too far from my, what I would do. But no, I had a mastectomy, and it's like if you really focus on your body can go to shite, in
Oh,
like
yeah.
2 seconds. So it's
You look
just
beautiful. You're beautiful though.
thank you. Well, it's okay. I don't care. I'm like, it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, they do that to women. So we have, you being pushed to keep your weight off, going drinking, after the shows, comics go through that too. They give us free drinks and stuff.
Cocaine
So
was big in those days too. Everybody was doing it, and it was like,
yeah.
I never got drunk on the set, but I remember after couldn't wait to get it was just liquor became a crutch for at a certain point. And I became like a radioactive blackout drinker at a certain point in the 90s, in the late 90s. I also went to Monte Carlo. I was sent around the world on all these lavish celebrity tennis tournament trips where they send you first class to hang out with Sean Connery and Roger Moore, the two James Bonds.
Oh my God, I used to have a crush on him when I was little.
And
Yeah.
Albert and Ivana Trump was there, and
Yeah.
all these superstars were there. It was like
Wow.
you would go and you'd party. And I remember being so drunk one day, I had to play center court tennis in Monte Carlo with Coach Riley of the Lakers,
Yeah.
Jenny Craig, and Merv Griffin. It was the weirdest group of people.
Yeah.
And Regis Philbin and Princess Stephanie and Kathy Lee Gifford. I remember Frank Gifford and Kathy Lee gave me their T-shirts to wear because I was sweating too much or something. But I remember being drunk on center court and almost fainting, and I had to quit the match in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So I had some embarrassing moments, but nothing too embarrassing yet.
Yeah.
And then it got worse. And then I found myself at a certain age thinking, wait a minute, I forgot to have children. Wait, I forgot to have a normal life. I forgot to get married. I forgot, Hollywood is very weird. You live in a bubble and it's twisted and you think fame is all there is and it's the most hollow. It took the hollowness of fame to make me realize all I ever wanted was a family.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And, sometimes you have to lose everything before you're pliable enough to learn something new. So I believe every moment of my downfall was an absolute necessary ingredient to the joy and the liberation and the happiness I feel today. There was every single domino was in place. But looking at the time, it wasn't. I felt like, oh my God, that rock star that dumped me, if only I'd married him. I thought everything that happened was just so horrible at the time. Yes. And then I found I was pregnant. And I was later in life. I found myself pregnant. And I had some really, really authentic, gut-wrenchingly raw things I could say about this, but I'm not going to say it here because I'm not quite ready to say what I really want to say about that. But I was so excited to be pregnant, thinking, I can do this. I'm going to have a little baby. And I didn't drink a drink of liquor after I found out I was pregnant, but I had been drinking up to that point.
Yeah.
So I went through this pregnancy at the age of 39, 40 years old.
Oh, wow.
And it was so interesting. I had a best friend help me, this my labor coach. The father was excited. We decided to do this together. I had the amniocentesis. I did everything right. I was really great. And then the minute the baby was born, this beautiful little boy, I decided to start drinking again. And for a couple months, nobody knew I was secretly drinking. And I remember going to a Labor Day barbecue. This is horrible. It's hard to share about this, but going to a Labor Day barbecue, driving with him drunk in the car. And I'm going, oh, I can't do this. I was thinking, is alcohol really a problem with me? I wasn't ever ready to face that yet.
Yeah.
And because I could cover it really well, you know. But at these Labor Day barbecues, I would put the baby in a car seat on the picnic table and run into people's houses looking for liquor. And this is something we share about in recovery meetings. It's really raw. It's really, really gritty. But at the end of the Labor Day weekend, I couldn't get drunk that whole weekend, but I just kept puffing up like a blowfish.
Yeah.
And I remember I reached that pit of incomprehensible demoralization. And I decided, I need help. This is sick. I can't live like this. And I wandered into a meeting, a 12-step recovery meeting at a church in Beverly Hills.
Wow.
To this day, I don't know how I got there. This is really weird. I didn't drive. And I remember, there's something I have to tell you. There was something I hated. I had this big resentment against my mother for 20 years, for 30 years, for giving away my Barbies. I had the original bubble cut redhead Barbie, one of the original Barbies with the bubble cut hairdo. I had an original Ken doll with hair made of fuzz, and his arm even came off, and he had sort of a crotch area. And I had a midge with freckles that looked really painted on. And I thought, these are going to be worth a fortune someday. Whatever you do, never give them away. And I stuck that Barbie suitcase with the Barbie dream house in the attic at our house in New York. And I said, Mom, whatever you do, never give these Barbies away. Sure enough, 6 months later, I went to college, come back the first semester, they're gone. She gave away everything I ever loved. There's a long story about my mother's, bless her soul, rest her soul, bipolar disorder and borderline
personality. Yeah.
Learn to forgive her. But
yes,
long story short, I could not forgive her for giving away the Barbies. It was something that just ate me alive. There was Barbie musical on Broadway coming out. It was one of those things I could always use against her. And I remember
you hang on to it.
No one knew that story. But at my first recovery meeting, here's the second biggest gotcha of my life. The first meeting I go to, I walked in with a hat and sunglasses. I'm too famous to get sober, I thought. And then suddenly they said, here's what I heard when I walked in. There was a woman at the podium sharing, and she said, a speaker was talking to this beautiful room of beautiful women. And she said, if you wandered into this room and you don't know you're an alcoholic, let's put it this way. Virgins don't take pregnancy tests. And there was a roar of laughter, and there was a smell of cinnamon pastries and coffee, and they looked happy. And it was so funny, that line. And I just sat down. They said, are there any alcoholics present? And my hand shot up without my permission. And that was my first prayer. My first surrender was just admitting it. And I looked up at my hand going, and then a river of tears. And that was when I unburdened. 20 years of hell came off me. And nobody knew my Barbie story. But this woman took me home at the end of the meeting. A whole bunch of women came up and hugged me because they hugged the newcomer. And I felt this love, enveloped in love. And at that meeting, this is the weirdest supernatural thing that ever happened in the beginning. This woman takes me home to my place, and I had an apartment in Beverly Hills, a townhouse. And she says, Lydia, you're going to overcome every resentment you ever had in this program. For example, I overcame a lifelong resentment against my mother for giving away my Barbies. And my jaw dropped open, hair stood up on my neck, no lie. I went, am I on a hidden camera show? Is this a joke?
Am I being punked?
To this day, I cry over it because it was so supernatural. I've never heard the story since from anyone else. And, Barbie's in the news lately, but it was the most unbelievable coincidence I've ever heard of for me. It was the neon sign I needed, that God has a sense of humor and he was just showing me you're on the right path. I felt home, like I'd been off track all my life, and I was suddenly snapped into divine alignment.
Wow.
Divine alignment. I've
What
never
a God
craved a
you
drink.
got.
I was a radioactive drop dead drunk. I almost dropped my baby down the stairs in a blackout the weekend before this. I've never craved a single drop of liquor since that day, 29 years ago.
Wow.
And I've
No
had
desire
hundreds of these
at
scotch.
all. Like nothing. Zero. No
I have
desire.
never, we have liquor all over the house. Parties, family comes over for the holidays. I serve liquor to people. I write in sports bars. Now that's supernatural. I call it a catastrophic spiritual awakening because it was taken out of me in one swoop. And I can't say, not everyone gets that lucky. I was ready. It was like I had a lobotomy, my old brain was removed, and something new came in.
You become a new person.
Yeah, maybe it was just willingness, or maybe I'd hit my bottom.
Yeah. It's almost like you jumped timelines very quickly.
Yeah.
Quantum timelines, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like that's the old me. Let's go to the next, the best.
I can't explain it except that I didn't do any of the hard work. Here's what I always tell my sponsees. All I did was admit it and ask for help,
Wow.
and God did the heavy lifting. Or this, I call,
Yeah.
you can call God love, your higher power. To me,
Yeah.
the word God is very, it's very fueled with a lot of panic for people. A lot of people are recovering from some fundamentalist religion, and they can't use that word. For me, it was a new word I love. Good orderly direction, G-O-D. Or group of drunks, G-O-D, whatever it is, it's helping, it's love.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to do anything but ask, but admit it. And then everything was taken care of in a weird way. It was like, cast your burdens on,
Yeah.
get out of your own way. Stop self-obsessing.
Absolutely. I learned that with cancer too. It's like when you're, I'm going to do this and this is going to be it. And da, 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 if you let go, you just put your intention out there and let go. It's magic. I am practicing that to the point where I don't even plan anything. I don't even have goals almost. It's like, whatever.
I need to be more like you at this point because I do have these kind of wants and,
No, totally. And when they come to me, I'm like, girl, remember you could have died. So if you were dead now, what would be the point of, what you've done before? It doesn't count. It doesn't matter. What matters, I think, this is my personal experience, is we all come here with a purpose. Once we know our purpose, what is our purpose? And once we know that, then everything I do aligns with my purpose, which is to love and help others. And that's it. The rest, who cares? I could die tomorrow. So what if I have an Emmy? I could die tomorrow. Who cares?
Well, you just said, tell me your purpose again. What is your purpose?
To love and help others.
Exactly.
But to love and help myself too, because we're all one, right? So helping myself is helping others. Same thing. It's like they're connected. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh my God. It's like everything. It took me so long to even let go. Even a year ago, after my mother died, I found letters she wrote me begging forgiveness for her cruelty as a child. She was so helpless. I actually forgave my mother. I went to her one day, the year before she died. She was so tiny and so desperate for forgiveness. I'd done many levels of it, but not completely. I said, you were the best mother that could ever live. Believe me, she was not. But I held her in my arms and just let her off the hook. And she cried and wept like a baby. And it felt like, what do I need to hold on to this hatred and anger anymore, of all this resentment? We're here to help others. That's exactly it. Because who remembers who won an Oscar 5 years ago? I don't remember. I saw Leaving Las Vegas when Nicolas Cage won the Oscar and Elizabeth Shue. 2 years later, I forgot they even won the Oscar, and neither of them were actually working anymore much. Who cares? Unless you're helping others.
That's it. I think actually there's an episodic series called How to Live to Be 100, the Blue Zones. And, they talk about the diet and everything. But one of the main things that they all have in common is they all have a sense of purpose. Like a lot of the older people would volunteer and help other people. So it helps you live longer also, because it's almost, the way I feel about it is, I don't really care about achievements or what people think of me, and good or bad. It doesn't matter. What I only care about is this serving my life purpose? Is
Beautiful.
this for my highest good? And if it's not, it's like, bye, bish.
You have it down, Grace. That's why it's a state. You're in a state of grace. I love you so much for this.
Thank you.
You really have it down. I mean, I still wrestle with, although I must say one thing. Recently, I got this really good news about a screenplay that I wrote years ago, and I was afraid to show it to anybody. Well, I just sent it in, and I went, oh, I forgot how much I love creating. I love writing comedy. I love creating stories and mysteries, and I love sharing our experience, strength, and hope. I love helping others.
Well, how you help others is telling your story, Lydia, being you. That's it. Telling your story, being you, inspiring others. And you do that. And somebody I just read in the comments wrote that Lydia replies to all her fans, which you make sure you do. I know that you do that. I remember one time I called you and you were like, there's one of my fans that needs help, and you were on the phone with them. Like, that's the kind of earth angel that you are. So you are living your purpose.
Thank you are. I try. I can't answer everybody, and I really feel guilty about it, but we've got to. This show will help others. This show.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's why I do the show. That's all I care about. It's sharing our stories and our experience, and if it resonates with someone so they can reach their own state of grace, because we all have different states of grace, what it means to you. Now, what does your state of grace mean to you?
To be honest with you, the minute I got sober and I had that major spiritual awakening, everything became funny. Every tragedy turned into comedy. I know you appreciate comedy. You're a comedian.
Yes.
But I was never able to translate life that way. God gave me this sense of humor where everything became absurdly funny. And I couldn't resist writing comedy.
That's awesome.
I kind of try to do my one-liners on everybody, but then I had to get serious about writing a real book with authentic pieces to it, because a couple of years ago, the book agent said, your book is too funny. And I went, darn it, why can't I just be funny? He goes, because your story is serious and you need to tell the authentic story with the humor. So I'm finally finishing that and getting it out there. But for me, that was just a wonderful little gift, because humor is a great coping mechanism.
Yes.
Mine is to not be anxious over what people think of me. It's not, I'm so sick of worrying if someone thinks I'm pretty or young enough anymore.
All that matters is what you think of you. Stand in the mirror, front of the mirror. It's like, I'm beautiful. I'm amazing. So what if this person sees me that way? Maybe they're projecting how they feel about themselves. Who cares? I know I'm beautiful. I know I'm awesome. And that's all that matters, Lydia. You're beautiful. You're awesome. That's it. Period. That's all that matters.
It takes a while for the industry that we're in, this showbiz industry, for all of you guys who want to be actors. I know several people, and Mikey, a lot of people think, I want to be in showbiz. It's so much fun. You just have to be.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, if you only knew, the fear of rejection that we go through with auditions. Mm-hmm. I could write a whole one-woman show about auditions and how much I avoid them like the plague. And it's hilarious, actually, when I think about it. Mm-hmm. I'd rather stick needles in my eyes through an audition. It's like, but anyway, I have a lot of comedy on that subject matter. But anyway, that's because being judged is so uncomfortable. It doesn't feel natural.
No, totally. But again, it's a judgment, and it's their reality. It's not your reality. Remember, we create our own reality, right?
Right. We create it with what you focus on grows. That's exactly it.
It's like, if somebody says that, girl, stand in front of the mirror. I'm like, I'm gorgeous. I'm beautiful. What? Look at that. Hi, girl. That's what I do.
But the society is so materialistic. We're so focused on the material form, the physique, the body, the skin, the wrinkles, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I wish we could just see each other's essence and love each other for what's going on really in your heart.